Great. So nice to see everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order and can you verify that we have a quorum?
Yes, I still verify we have a quorum.
Okay, great.
Director Pepper has joined us also.
Yeah. So we'll go to item 4. So public comment on any matter that's not on the posted agenda. Public comment. Not hearing any. That item is completed. So now we'll go to the consent agenda, and there are minutes for March 15th. I'm sorry, Tony, do I need to go to public comment on that one too first?
No, I would like to just clarify that there were no matters subsequent to the posting of the agenda. I think we're ready to, unless there board members have any modifications or suggestions on the consent agenda, we're ready to approve that by roll call vote.
Do I need a motion to approve in a second, Tony?
Yes.
All motion.
Great.
I'll second.
And I will call roll. Central Coast Community Energy.
Yes.
Clean Power SF.
Yes.
Believe East Bay Community Energy is absent. Clean Energy. Again, Peninsula Clean Energy.
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy.
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't there.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Vote yes on behalf of Gresh.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority.
Yes.
And Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Mr. Chassett, would you like to vote on the consent agenda?
Guys, I have to admit, I not at my Brown Act approved location. I had a little bit of a brain fart around this. I'm still trying to acclimate. So I guess I just need to abstain, right?
Yes, and you are not
Present.
needed.
I can attend as an attendee, right?
But you're not needed for the quorum today.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
I did the same thing. I just realized that seeing that I was supposed to be at the office and I'm not there. So I don't know if that messes up your quorum.
Let me make a suggestion. Why don't I confirm that, and then we will just proceed with the agenda, and I'll be back in a few minutes if there's any. But assuming there are none, the consent agenda carries.
Actually, I'm going to need to abstain as well. I can be back on in 15 minutes. So
I'm sorry, everybody, for starting this, but today was a day that I ended up just being in unplanned work from home. So my bad, folks.
Thank you for reminding us, Nick. Yeah, I can be at the office in 15 minutes as well.
Just point of order. I think I still see a quorum for Brown Act purposes. I see San Jose, Sonoma, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Redwood, and 3CE, I think. Is that still true?
Jeffrey, I am going back to the JPA. I believe you are correct, but I'm going back to the JPA just to make sure my recollection is correct.
Okay, thanks.
So Tony, should we pause for a minute here before we get into the regular agenda?
I believe so. It should be fairly quick.
No problem.
Sorry, Alex. I'm used to being in your seat and you don't have a requirement. You can show up from wherever you want.
yes, I agree. I'm going to drop. I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Mitch. So Laura, my understanding is we'll give a moment
to Tony. He's checking, but we most likely do have a quorum and we can proceed. And in the interim, if folks move to their public locations, then they can rejoin as a voting member, but otherwise they'll have no ability to vote for this meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I have confirmed that Director Cypress is correct, that we have a quorum for the board.
In terms of the voting, let members decide, but the main item on the regular agenda is approving the budget. Looks like Mitch will rejoin us. Jan, I don't know if you want to do that in order to vote.
I won't be able to get there
Okay.
for 15 or 20, well, it'll take me a little while to
Okay.
get my act together to get out.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we should just proceed.
We can proceed, and the budget approval rules are the same as any other regular voting matter.
Great.
Sorry about that. We'll be
That's
better next time. We remembered last month, we forgot this month.
It's amazing it hasn't happened more often.
I see it every Tuesday, so I remember. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is an update on the offshore wind project. So I'll pass it over to Alex.
Yeah, hi, everybody. So welcome back. Thanks for joining. And again, no problem. We still have a quorum, so we can move the business matters forward. And Tony, thanks for shepherding us. As some of you guys know, Tony's been serving today as the general counsel for CC Power, while our normal point person for GC from Braun Blazing Associates is out with a personal matter. So Tony, I hope we send our best to Brittany, but it's good to have you, and thanks for stepping in and guiding us today. Okay.
I'll make sure I give her appropriate background on what happened.
Yeah. And so there's two main agenda items for the discussion section today. Thanks, Chair Mitchell. The first is just a quick update on the offshore wind RFI. We'll have a moment for discussion about that, and I'll give you a brief schedule of what's happening there. After that, we're going to jump into the proposal for the 2023 to 2024 budget. I hope we have some good discussion. There's a bunch of slides to support conversation on that, but in the end, we'll show you what the numbers look like and why, and there'll be a time for a vote. So that's the plan, and feel free to jump in with any questions at any time. And Amy, thanks for broadcasting the slides. Can you move to the next slide, please? So as many of you know, this group has directed an RFI on offshore wind. We've basically got that about ready to launch. And so working with a good working group with staff from several of your entities, we've started to develop an RFI, and we're going to go to our ad hoc committee this Friday. I'm calling that the kickoff meeting because that's really where the decision-making body, the board members, will be able to review this and provide direction before we launch. So no real decision has been made, but that's the purpose of the ad hoc committee this Friday. So the timeline is this Friday, we'll meet with the ad hoc committee. The purpose there is to finalize the RFI document, the scheduled rollout and launch plan. And then that schedule is that starting next week, we will go forward and post the RFI. We'll have a press release to try and draw up attention and get as many participants as possible. We're looking at maybe having a virtual public session to just elaborate on what we're looking for any attendees on May 3rd. And then the deadline for responses is May 17th, which is fairly quick. It's about a 3-week turnaround. And this is in line with the energy storage RFI that CC Power and many CCAs did several years ago. Then ultimately, we plan to come back to you as the board with any recommendations from the ad hoc committee, and that would be at the June 21st CC Power board meeting. So that's the schedule. Let me just highlight who's involved. The ad hoc committee is comprised of Jan from PCE, Matt Marshall from RCEA, and Rob Shaw from 3CE. The meeting for the ad hoc committee is set up this Friday. And the working group has involved very helpful staff from RCEA, PCE, 3CE, and CC Power. And I just wanted to commend all of you as the directors, that your staff has been great. Thanks for supporting us in this effort with their sweat equity. And we're producing a work product we think will provide helpful information for all of us. And you'll get to participate in all that through the June 21st recommendations that get routed back to this board for discussion. Any questions or additions, and particularly from you, Chair Mitchell, or others on serving on the ad hoc committee?
I don't have any, but open it up to the board for any comment on this. This hand is raised, and I see Rob, you're trying to raise your hand already next.
Yeah.
Put it in chat first.
Sure. So thank you so much to the ad hoc and Alex for your work in getting this moving swiftly. Can you just summarize briefly a little bit about the gist of what you will be asking for in the RFI? I think I have a sense, but I just want to confirm that before I misreport it to my board.
Great question, Jeff. Thank you. So we're basically asking for information that would inform recommendations, but specifically we're asking for two categories of information. First is information from leaseholders in the target wind energy areas. And if you are a leaseholder, we really want to have a conversation with you to understand your timelines, pricing plans, what you see as barriers, and online dates, and particularly on the barrier side, what your plans are for port infrastructure, how you would plan to price that into anything, and likewise for transmission infrastructure. So we're really trying to tease out a clearer picture of when, how, where, and what would go into a bid for offshore wind from the leaseholders. Additionally, we know there's a lot of expertise out there on offshore wind, including East Coast developers. So we have a category 2 of respondent who they can just sort of hopefully participate and give us information, be a collaborator with us insofar as they may have expertise about what challenges are that we should know about as we engage this. So hopefully we'll drum up some interest from those participants. And we know that developing offshore wind is going to be complicated. There'll be many parties involved. And so this is also our chance to build out our contact database for the RFI for offshore wind in case the recommendation is to move forward with some sort of plan, procurement, or further action here.
That sounds excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good question. Rob, did I see your hand raised? Apologies if not.
Yes, I'm sorry. I can't virtually raise my hand. I'm away from the desktop. Just a comment really and an ask in order for that timeline to work. Any board members or staff that have direct contacts with those offshore leaseholders in California to send them to Alex so that we can target the RFI to those individuals and hopefully help them respond timely.
Yeah, thank you. Director Shaw, on that note, the plan is to do this press release. CC Power has a database with, I think, about 150 contacts in it. And when we did some of our last solicitations, we've leaned on the member CCAs to further amplify it. We do plan to broadcast this to you in case you have communication channels that you could route the RFI out. So we'll try to make that as easy as possible. But our sort of base case is we're broadcasting out to at least 150 parties and maybe more.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Tony, I need to go to public comment next, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so any comments from the public? You could raise your hand on the attendee side. Not hearing any, so we'll go on to the next item, which is approval of the budget for this fiscal year. And before we get into that, I just really want to thank Girish and Jeff for working, with Alex to come up with this recommendation. I'm very supportive of it. I think it will help us ensure that there are enough funds for CC Power for the projects that are committed, and also allow CC Power to continue to develop a number of service items that we identified in the strategic plan. So Alex will go over that in a moment. And it also achieves our goal of not, having a fiscal year budget that will carry us throughout the year, as well as some reserves, so that we don't have to keep coming back with budget approval several times throughout the year. So really appreciate all the work that went into this, and thank you, Alex, for working with a number of the directors on this. I'm very supportive of it, but I'll let you go through the slides and then we'll get to discussion.
Thanks, Vice Chair Mitchell. I'll jump in with the budget. What's more exciting than this? But I do want to say, process-wise, it's been great to work with many of you. And this has been a really helpful introduction for me, as a relatively new staff, taking the strategic plan that you guys all adopted late last year, and also checking in with Phyllis to really understand the rich details that went into that, and then translating that into an action plan. I'll do my best to explain that today, show you the numbers, and then hopefully you'll see why this looks like a really strong proposed budget for CC Power next year. And of course, chance for discussion as needed. So again, Amy, thanks for sharing the slides. Just for those of you working off your packet or the public, this is agenda item 6B. And in the end, there's a resolution for approval of this proposed budget. There's also a memo kind of elaborating some of the thinking I'll go through, but I'll be working off these slides to explain it here. So Amy, please, next slide. So just to calibrate everyone on where we are, CC Power has had a bit of a evolving budget process over the last few years as it's got up and running. Currently, you've been on a 6-month budget, but going into the strategic plan and then coming out of it, there was a desire to have the GM come back to you in April, which is actually happening today, with a proposed budget. And then we're going to really get on potentially, with your approval, a annual cycle going July to June going forward. So that's really what's happening structurally here. And then I'll tell you what goes into the budget proposal that's before you. Next slide. And I've also had a chance to work with the officers of CC Power. That's Garish as chair, and Lori as vice chair, and Jeff as our treasurer. And, asking a lot of questions and translating all of the ideas and feedback from you all into this budget plan, what you really want to know is that this is a building year. There's a lot of ideas for what CC Power can and should or ultimately will do, but to set that up and get that up and running takes a little time and work. We've relied heavily on sweat equity, meaning your staff, for getting a lot of the strong work done so far. We're looking to balance some of that reliance on your staff with a little more in-house capability. And what you see primarily in 23-24 is us going for some good achievable wins, while also scoping out and building our capabilities so that next year we're really in a position to do this work in partnership with you. And that's why I'm calling 23-24 as a building year. This simple visual probably oversimplifies it, which is that, we're 23-24 here, going to do contract administration. We're going to build a lot of capabilities and lean into these core operating structures that are going to help us. They're also going to move CC Power a bit more into the model of SCAPA, which is reliant on staff-led working groups to really make sure there's good two-way communication between the members and the central entity, in this case, CC Power. And then it also feeds up to the board for approvals of various project ideas when and if that's appropriate. Further, we're further solidifying the cash flow structures inside CC Power. And the main structure, as you guys know, is that there's general and administrative funds, and then there's project-specific funds. And the project-specific funds are going to be tracked in balancing accounts and really are your funds just being housed and used for project-specific purposes here. And getting all of that set up will be a core goal for 23-24. Lastly, we want to set up some reserves and start building the organization. One way that CC Power is different than SCAPA is that SCAPA is essentially owned by the members of SCAPA. So there's no need, it's really just an extension of those organizations. CC Power, by contrast, through its JPA agreement, is different. And so it should have at least some reserves. And we plan to try to build those reserves probably over a 4 to 5 year period in a way that makes it reasonable, so that the organization is just a little more financially stable going forward. So I'll explain a lot of that, but if you look further ahead, once we get through 23, 24, we'll be in a good position to take on more work. That would look like maybe more projects, having these working groups up and running, starting the shared services work, and then additional items as prioritized. I think a great example would be if right now a board member said, hey, let's look at, should CC Power own some generation on behalf of the members? You know, we don't have a structure yet to really wrestle with that decision and approach it quickly and efficiently for you and give you the right approvals. So that's a good example of the capability building we would pursue in 23, 24. And then if you look further ahead into 2025, 2026, that's really where we would start to see the sort of fuller vision of CC Power, where there's multiple projects and programs available for those who opt in. The financial systems are set up and clear. There's new offerings being spun out of the working groups, which really are driven by your staff. So it tells us what you would want and how we can work with you. There'll be strong financial positioning. And then I hope ultimately that you and your teams also start to have really good, strong relationships with the CC Power team. So we really know whose roles and responsibilities and where, and there's pretty seamless communication amongst everyone. So that's kind of a quick picture. And let me jump to the next slide and take you further in. So I wanted to try and build out your understanding a little bit of what the work plan for next year will be. And I wanted to focus first on the working groups, because the working groups are really going to be a core structure for CC Power. Having digested a lot of the feedback, I think there are two main working groups we want to set up. The first one is the resource planning working group. And embedded in this probably monthly working group is where RFIs would occur, your staff could participate. We would scope out possible IRA opportunities. We would look at programs. So that would really bring the right expertise from your teams collectively with CC Power as the project manager to work on those issues. And if there ever were a decision or a recommendation to move forward with a project, it would go up to the board. The other working group is a shared services working group, which is where we would focus on target services and scoping that out, looking at scheduling coordinator services, potentially a longer term project like an RA pool administration service, and then settlement and billing support functions. So these would all be sort of shared service value add. And the roles here would be, hopefully we'll have easy participation from your folks, maybe sometimes with leadership positions for your staff that are appropriate for this, but not too big a time commitment, and all project managed and supported by CC Power. And for those of you who are familiar with the phrasing of project development here in CC Power, the working groups would be pursuing phases 0 and 1 of any project ideas. So that's where it falls on the general administrative budget bucket. And then only if the board so directs would it kick over into phases 2 and 3, which is where there's a real interest and seriousness to pursue a project, and we start to track funds differently. So the working groups really set that up before it would go to the board for phase 2 and 3. So that's a core structure. And I believe those two working groups, the resource planning one and the shared services one, cover some of the top priorities from the strategic plan that you've all approved. Okay, Amy, next slide, please. And again, jump in if there are questions. I'm happy to answer questions at the end as well. I put this second, but I would also say it's probably one of the most important things is contract administration. So CC Power is overseeing the 4 contracts and, trying or planning to bring on, needed and important capacity in the coming years. So there is some nuts and bolts work to be done here. We need a scheduling coordinator for some of them. We're setting up the balancing accounts and the true up processes. There's ongoing contract administration, such as maintenance of the letters of credit, working on the minimum import capability, quarterly progress reports, et cetera. And then we also know as these projects get closer to the finish line, issues can come up. Issues with timing, strategy structure of the deals can come up. And so we're going to continue to prioritize this. This has been done historically as a phase 2, phase 3 part of work through the project oversight committees, and that won't change, but that is a core part of the work plan, and we're setting ourselves up with resources to make sure this gets done aggressively. These are all project-specific funds, so in the budget you'll see these categories later, but that's where this type of work occurs. And then let's move on. And then there's also some core operating setup for CC Power. I think you guys have done a great job of getting this organization up and running, but there's still a need for kind of double clicking key areas and clarifying things. A good example would be, we currently don't have clear policies that sometimes for unspent funds. So we want to try and tighten up the specific decision-making or policies on some of these operating matters, so there's never confusion, there's always clarity, and everybody knows exactly what's happening. I think these accounting advancements are part of that. We may also want to go into the JPA document and do a cleanup. There's a couple items in there that I think could be worth reviewing and discussing for the best balance for CC Power going forward. There's also some basic organizational things like setting up benefits that I'll get to, and then as time allows, we would look at additional working groups or things that may help us down the road. Some of these would be credit rating exploration or collaboration with CCCFA, so that we're in a better position to move quickly, because we do know that the procurement needs will be large going forward, and we just want to be as ready as possible in case that's what you decide. A few more items I wanted to note for you. One more slide, please, Amy. Excitingly, we have an event. So this will be CC Power's first official event. This is called the Getting It Built Right event. It's going to occur on September 29th. We don't have a location yet, but the plan is for it to be in person, likely in San Jose, maybe with a backup plan of San Francisco or in one of your other territories. This is about making sure we have opportunities for input from stakeholders to talk about all of the ways that the issues and opportunities with project development here in California and what the public thinks we should know, some of our perspectives and getting feedback on that, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to that event in September. There'll be a lot more information about that, but again, that'll be a 1 or a half day event on September 29th. We'll also look at full-time staff. So there's currently authorization for 1 new FTE, and we'll pursue that. And then we may also look at if additional CCAs are ready and interested to join, how do we approach that? And hopefully there's opportunities to explore that next year. So those are some of the work plan ideas. Let me jump into the next phase of information here. And again, Vice Chair Mitchell, please interrupt if I'm talking too much. Okay. All right, next slide, Amy. So what does it all mean? And again, what you see here is a table that racks up the numbers. It's grouped into the item, the general and administrative side, the project specific side, and then the totals. And so we've categorized it for you. So really, I think if you want to focus on numbers, the G&A is important because CC Power is set up in a way where all the members support and equally fund the general administrative side. But we also want to have the right checks and balances so that G&A is controlled tightly and that we don't overinvest. A good example with that is how we can use sweat equity in the working groups so that we don't have to do everything through G&A. The project specific side is really just for the members who've signed on to deals. And again, we have 4. And so you'll see that they bear some of the costs for shepherding those contracts forward to the finish line. And then we also have some costs that we categorize as project flow throughs. And that number will ultimately be very large as energy revenues from the CAISO move through. But that's really very specific funds directly attributable to those projects. And all of the things in the project specific category are tracked in balancing accounts, or will be. And so to the extent that we have funds set in there for contract negotiations and we end up not using those funds, they stay in your balancing account. And so in a way, you're also just preloading your balancing account according to the terms of the PPSAs that many of you have signed for the projects. So in the end, when you add those categories up, you get to the 1.788 million number, bottom right. And that also includes a healthy addition of 175,000 of reserves. I wanted to just speak to the reserves really quickly. A challenge with the reserves is how quickly can we build the appropriate amount of reserves? What's the appropriate amount? And how do we make sure no one's cross-subsidizing project development? So to avoid cross-subsidization, we make sure we fund all of this through the G&A side. None of the reserve building occurs through the project-specific category. And then, the plan is to build reserves that cover the organization, roughly a 6-month operating target. And that is always unknown because the budgets may change in subsequent years, but we think the 175,000 is an appropriate target for this year and definitely moves us forward building reserves while trying to limit the increase in G&A costs over current. Okay, so we can go one more slide and then I'll pause, maybe 2 more. So what does it all mean? You see thank you. Yeah, here's, Amy, I think we jumped past one slide. Yeah, Amy, thanks. There's just a kind of rack up slide. So this is the best one for now. So what does it all mean for each of you? The general administrative are at 84,000 each. And then the project specific is, again, that total number, but assigned based on the percentages each member has signed on for each project. And so what that yields is the total amount, column 4 there, where you see the current proposed dues or total budget. And then for contrast, you can see what the current amount is from the current budget cycle. And now the current budget cycle has an asterisk because it's a 6-month budget. So we doubled it to give you an apples to apples comparison. But using the top line with EBCE, I think they're a good example. The proposed dues would be 84,000. Their current dues translate to 60.5 roughly. So you see an increase of about $20,000 to $25,000 there. And hopefully I've explained why, but at the minimum, just from the increase in reserves, you're going to see an increase in the G&A side. And then on the you see some of our other members, Vice Chair Mitchell, if I could pick on you, San Jose, being a larger project participant, does incur more of the project specific costs. And so that translates through to their number, and everyone can see their numbers here. And I understand that, this is your ratepayers and your members' funds. And so we really want to be careful here. I've tried hard to work with the officers of CC Power to really scrutinize the spending plan and make sure we're being responsible everywhere we can. And I also want to assure you that there's no really large line item. A lot of this is just smart, prudent, small budgeting that leads to these numbers. And if there was one big item to shine a light on, I would have told you, but really this just comes through as us really looking at translating these work plans into specific actions and having the resources to do it. So before I hand it, Vice Chair Mitchell, the next slide sort of just reminds everyone of the mini criteria we were solving for. So do you want me to just cover that really fast? Okay. Amy, can we go to the next slide? So, throughout this budgeting process, and again, thanks for the participation from all of you, there's a lot of small details we wanted to address. We really wanted to prevent the cross-subsidization. We wanted to keep projects cafeteria menu style. We wanted to enact the strategic plan and build these value-add services and really start to build the capability to do that. And then we also wanted to avoid mid-cycle cash calls on the G&A side, which we know can be burdensome. We wanted sort of a gradual, prudent financial plan. And then we also wanted healthy pressures to manage and keep the G&A side down. And then lastly, we know that some of your staff have put forth Herculean efforts to help get projects signed and developed. And we want to instead try to optimize our reliance on the member staff and sweat equity rather than be fully reliant on it, which again might take the form of cross-subsidization. So we're going to ramp that back. So those were some of the many things that went into this budget, and I'm happy to address or speak to any of it at this time. Back to you, Vice Chair Mitchell. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And again, really appreciate all of your work on this and all of the work of the other board members to work with you to put forward this proposal. I think it achieves what we were looking for in terms of this year and in growing CC Power and making sure that we can execute on those items in the strategic plan. So with that, I will open it up for discussion. Any questions? And before I do that, I'll move the recommendation. If there is no discussion, there's Jeff.
This is maybe a little less about budget, but since you mentioned it in the budget item, you mentioned about the possible expiration of a credit rating. Were you looking at that exploration for CC Power itself to have a rating? And we can reserve the discussion of the details on that for a future meeting, but I was just at a high level, just interested in that since I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, Jeff, that came forth. Good question. So that came forth from the strategic plan in the context of, particularly with the Inflation Reduction Act, do the CCAs want to own? And what's the opportunity there for capturing tax benefits? And that kind of spins you down the path of, well, who would do that? What's the contract structure? As you know, the contract structure for CC Power is this PPSA model. But if we were doing something different, like an ownership purchase, it might take the form of trying to finance it. And that then brings up some of these questions.
That's enough for me for today. That's great.
Okay.
I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Hey, everyone. First of all, just wanted to thank Alex and the board members that supported the development of the budget proposal. I did have a question for you, Alex, about the project-specific funding, and the numbers we're seeing on the slides, those are incremental to sort of what's been funded to date. Is that right?
Not necessarily. So to date, we have split the budget into two categories. But the funds haven't been tracked in that way yet. So as we move forward, there's going to be this translation exercise of going from the current budgeting cycle into this future one. And I'm going to work with our accountant, who Mike Marr, who is aware of this area of no policy, and we're going to try and clean that up so that we have very clear visibility to what's in for you, Mike, the CPSF balancing account and how that gets debited versus what's in the G&A side. And we haven't really been able to give you your sort of 3 month ahead, here's the balance in your account, and we're going to set that up. So I do think that the good news, though, is that the dollars so far and what's in our bank account are small. And so as we get that tuned up, we may put some of it into your balancing account based on the agreements from the current fiscal year, but I just don't know what those numbers are yet. And I'm happy to walk anyone through that process once we get clear on it.
That's great. That sounds great. Happy to hear you're working on that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think another aspect of that, Mike, is that it could create more reserves than we anticipated. And working with the current and previous interim general manager, we have looked at sort of cash flow and where we think we're going to land at the end of the cycle. I think the story is looking generally good, but we don't have enough specificity to report out to you guys yet. But it makes me feel that there's the right amount of conservatism in this budget and that you won't get any surprises to the bad.
Yeah, which was one of our objectives as we worked with Alex to put forward this proposal, is to make sure there's enough in those project budgets to cover some of the work that we know needs to be accomplished this year to support those projects.
Thank you. Thanks for joining today, Mike.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Lori, this is Mitch. Not any real question, but just sort of weighing in from the smaller side of the membership. Just to note, we're supportive of the approach. We appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Alex, I appreciate you reaching out and briefing us on this. But just a note, this does tend to be a little bit more of a lift for us at this level. We're certainly gaining value from being a part of CC Power, and we're committed to continuing that. But just as we go forward, we'll need to continue to monitor things from a pure dollar standpoint for us. So thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. And I hear you. I think we really worked hard to consider how to balance the desire to avoid cash calls mid-cycle. So meaning having enough, but then also not having any excess that we could do away with so that we don't overburden anyone member. So that tension is healthy and we should keep an eye on it. I agree.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, we should allow an opportunity for public comment on this item 6B.
I was going to go there next. Okay, let's open it up for public comment. And you can raise your hand on the attendee side if you would like to comment.
I am seeing none.
Okay. There's no additional discussion. I'll look for a second on my motion to approve.
And Sonoma, I'll second.
Great. And we can go to the vote.
Roll call vote on resolution 230401, the 23-24 fiscal year budget, Central Coast Community Energy. Amy, did we mute Rob? Is Rob muted? Why don't we come back to 3CE? Clean Power SF,
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy.
You can't vote.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for the reminder. Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy,
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
All right. I think that's it.
Everett, you're muted.
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power,
Yes.
Valley also cannot vote today. So
Actually, Tony, I am in the office now.
thank
So I can vote, so I'll vote yes, if that's appropriate.
you very much. Absolutely.
For Peninsula, could you mark me as abstain, please?
And then Rob, I see
Yes.
you're unmuted. Thank you.
And for clarity, yes, sorry.
Thank you. We got you. And the resolution carries.
Great. So that's the last item on the regular agenda. Item 7 is discussion of any individual member items. So I'll open it up for that.
Vice Chair Mitchell, if I may, our next CC Power Board meeting is planned for May 18th, but I believe many of you will be heading to San Diego for this Cal CCA event. So unless we hear differently, we do plan to propose to not have that meeting, but it would be fun to get to see everyone in San Diego. And I hope that event's a great success. And some of you and we're going to be on an offshore wind panel. So I'm looking forward to that and being down there.
Yeah, I would very much support canceling that meeting. It'd be hard to get it together. Yep. Any other discussion of individual member items? All right, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.